Thank you, TEDx New England. We've been well accommodated, well taken care of. It's been a beautiful experience. I'm here to talk about world peace. But the most pressing question I get usually, the most serious question is, where can I too get a pair of those yellow pants? Because you can't find those everywhere. I'm a school teacher, elementary school. Been doing it for over 3 decades. And you might think that I know what I'm doing, that I have a great knowing and understanding. You might think that I'm very certain about what I'm doing. I have to empower others, younger people, to be able to know what they're doing in the world. But the fact of it is, and as I get older, I understand that I know very little, and I'm uncertain about so much in this vast world. I can't really claim to know so much so well. So really, I approach education, teaching in an unknowing state, in an uncertain state. And really, I find it mirrors life. It's not really any different from the daily lives we all lead. And how do we get through that kind of, okay. How do we get through that kind of unknowing? I'm in stereo now, great. Well, I use a game. It's called the World Peace Game, and I'll tell you a little bit about it. But every year, for the last 35 years or so, my 4th graders tackle the biggest global problems, and they solve them in ways that I cannot imagine, I cannot predict, I barely understand sometimes. And they do it through a number of ways, a number of methods. First, I'll describe the game you're going to see, and you'll also see a 3-minute clip of it to actually get a figure of the structure. There are about 30 children in the classroom, and the game itself is a 4-foot by 4-foot by 4-foot plexiglass tower. It towers over some of the students in the classroom. It's a massive structure to them. And they come in, they're immediately overwhelmed with the complexity. There are 4 levels: an undersea level with undersea mining and submarine warfare is possible, little figurines I got from stores. A ground and sea level with factories and cities and universities and military and everything you can imagine on our Earth level, seas and oceans and towns and continents. There's an aircraft level about this high, about eye level for most of the kids. There are giant puffs of cotton on that level that are clouds, and they can be moved around by one of the students who plays the random or weather goddess. She'll take a little wand and give you heavy weather or give you nice weather, depending on how she feels. And we have a top level, outer space level. There's asteroid mining, a space station, killer and research satellites, International Space Station, space programs. Not all countries have one, but there is some activity in space that affects the entire planet. With this giant geopolitical simulation, the students gather around. They're divided into 4 countries. There is a United Nations body. A few kids play that role. There are arms dealers, and there's a World Bank. And the 4 countries, Prime Minister, Secretary of State, Minister of Defense, and a CFO. You have to have your CFO. You know, if you run out of money in the middle of a battlefield, you're in really big trouble. They find that out. So they're in their cabinets on each side of the board, 4 countries. And each country has a different asset value. Some are poor, some are wealthy. And there are basically 50 interlocking problems that I give them, including global warming, famine, disease, nuclear waste, which I think we solved earlier this evening, today. Some of our young students have solved that problem. I'll pass it on to my 4th graders. But we give them so many intractable problems, and they're tied together in an algorithm, a chaos algorithm, so complexly that if one thing changes, everything changes. I deliberately over-complexify the situation. They're 9 years old, but they have proven time and time again that complexity is no matter for them at all. So we have the situation with the problems, and finally there's an ultimate problem. There's a saboteur. Someone in the group I have chosen. I've asked them, they have a sort of high-functioning dual-mindedness. I've asked them to basically play their role to try and solve this game for world peace, and at the same time try to destroy everything. Secretly, undermine through conversations, misinformation, misdirection, ambiguities, and irrelevancies, undermine the entire structure of the game. And the children know that this person is in the room and they love it. Give us a hard saboteur, somebody we will never guess. They can attempt to if they wish. They can find this person out, and of course they can disable that function. But they love having a challenge like that. So we'll play the game. There are two conditions. The game is one when all the problems are solved, all the interlocking problems are solved, and every country's asset value has been increased from the starting point. Everyone has to win. And yet, the problems at the beginning of the game pit them in a situation where it's almost impossible to win. They almost cannot. And I've designed it deliberately to be that difficult. And time again, they solve the problems. So what I'd like to do is share a little clip with you of what the World Peace Game looks like, and then come back and explain some of the stories, some of the principles that are inherent in the experiences these children have. So here's a clip of the World Peace Game. Relationships are important in education. That really may be even the key to teaching well, is the relationship you have with a student. If you're able to touch their mind, fine, but if you can touch their heart, then the mind contact lasts longer and goes deeper, I think. Welcome to the World Peace Game. I'm very, very sorry, but you're going to have fun today. This is the World Peace Game, and it's about 28 years old. It's a political science simulation. And the game basically pits 4 or 5 countries against each other in every way, politically, socially, militarily, and economically. And they have to use their imagination, use their thinking skills to think their way out of these problems that they're pitched into head first.
It's a game that makes you think really hard. It makes you really think about what's really going on in the world.
What I think is you can't be all about war, and you can't be, again, this may sound bad, but you can't be all about peace.
Yeah, not like all like flowers and grassy fields and
Plus
solar panels.
They threaten you, Miss Williams, and your cabinet to destroy the refinery complex if they are challenged. I want it to be so thrilling that they don't want to do without it, but so challenging that they almost can't do it. That kind of tension is where learning occurs. They have that love and fear, and that learning just torques on that kind of mismatch.
There has to be a way we can use this. We have to figure that out. We can use this volcano, use this eruption to make something good happen.
If you look on the World Peace Game map, he has like that much oil.
So does Caden. And Caden's our complete ally.
I don't want to be a rebel. She doesn't want to. We can make a treaty.
I hope that they take away every creative thinking tool, every critical thinking tool they can, and they have a confidence that they can solve any problem, they can deal with anything. As I said to them today, if just one of you is in position to leverage something good for the world, you may save us all. And that's what I'm naively hoping might happen. This is a clip from a film that is being portrayed here this evening in the studio. And would you join me in welcoming the producer of this film, the young filmmaking visionary, Chris Farina, is here in the audience today, my friend. Chris, would you stand up and be recognized? It's a great film, despite the fact I'm in it. And Chris is so good, he can make a rock look glamorous, so we look really good in the film. The students, by the way, I didn't mention, read Sun Tzu's The Art of War, which I explained to them as a book on how to avoid war or get out of it as quickly as possible if you can. They're 9 years old, and they get the epigrams that are very small and very short, and sometimes they even develop their own philosophical response to that. And I'd like to share with you a few stories about the complexity they engage with. We deliberately attempt to over-complexify the situation to make it almost impossible to get out of. To deal with also the chance to reflect deeply. We talked about the speed of a lot of the media and technology we're involved in with our young people today, But in this game, you've got to take, or you have to take, some time will be given to reflect on situations because impulsive behavior will get you further into trouble. And they learn that the hard way very often. And finally, they learn collaboration, a kind of hyper or super collaboration, a collective wisdom that I do not have. They ask me what is the answer to a problem. I cannot tell them. I have no answer. I do not know the answer. But together, their collective wisdom can come up with some way to solve these problems. I'll give you an example. There was a tyrant. Actually, there was a bully in our school. His name was Bobby, I think it was. I'm making up the name. Bobby. And Bobby was known far and wide to be a bully. He was in my class. And usually I offer the leading positions to some of the students that I've thought long and hard about who needs a chance to be a leader, who has skills that need to be exploited further in this area. And I thought, Bobby's a bully. But something in me as a teacher said, Bobby needs a chance to do this. Nitin Notria earlier today said that sometimes people are given power, and when they get that power, what happens? I was going to take a chance with Bobby. Bobby, will you be the Prime Minister of this country? Why, certainly, Mr. Hunter. I thought, well, maybe here's a chance. What did Bobby begin to do as soon as he became Prime Minister? He began to bully other students. I thought, I'm failing as a teacher. I made a huge mistake. Why did I take a risk like this on this child? I could see the problems, and yet I thought, my own hubris thought maybe he can do something that I think is there. And he began to bully, and he began to, on a course of world domination, basically. He took over several countries. He absorbed their cabinets into his cabinet. He had a huge cabinet behind him, ministers all over the place. Little girls and little boys are all behind him. They couldn't say a word because he's in charge, and he's about to take over the last country. And I felt so sad. I was in such despair. I ruined this entire 8-10-week experience for these kids because Bobby is going to ruin the world. He's going to show them that force and might are the only way, and he's dominating everything. Suddenly, Emma, who is about this tall, the shortest person in my class, stands up. She says, Mr. Hunter, I'd like to declare a coup d'etat. You can have a coup d'etat in the World Peace Game. We stop everything when that's called for. We have a series of odds-weighted coin tosses. Emma lost the coin toss. Now, when you lose a coin toss, you've got to go into exile, so she had to leave. She had to have an exit strategy in place before she took this risk. She knew. She made her plans during negotiation time. So she had to go. Had she won, Bobby would have had to be exiled. He'd had to go probably knock on the UN's door and ask for asylum or something. But she lost. She had to go. My heart was again broken. The children were even more in despair. Suddenly, Jared stands up. I'd like to call it coup d'etat too. But Emma had just called it, just lost, so we had another coin toss. Bobby's a little concerned. What is this all about? I'm in charge. Jared lost the coin toss. He was exiled. So Bobby prepares to make his final move and swoop in and sweep up the last country with his tactical Air Force strike. And then suddenly, Zacchaeus stands up. I have a coup d'etat I'd like to call as well. Eventually, after 5 coup attempts, Bobby was taken down. You see, the students had planned. They had gotten together during negotiation period. Every team has a declaration period, and then there's a general negotiation period. Everybody's up and talking, and secrets are passed and so forth. They had planned. If you go down, he stands up. If he goes down, she stands up. If she goes down, you stand up. And they were going to not allow tyranny to stand. They were making that sacrifice philosophically. I could not have taught that. I could not have asked them to do that. They decided what was right and did it themselves. And I'll share another story with you. This is about my good friend Rodney. Rodney, shall we say, had a higher opinion of himself than anyone else could possibly ever have had. He was the Minister of Defense of a country, very powerful, wealthy country. His prime minister is very weak. He's Rodney's best friend. Lets Rodney do whatever he wants. And suddenly, mercenaries appear around Rodney's oil fields. Rodney says, well, I'll take care of this. I'm going to launch some ICBMs. And the weather god stands up, Rodney, do you know you could create an ecological disaster if you miss? Rodney says, I know what I'm doing. And he was warned again by the UN and some other ministers. Rodney, if you miss, it's going to be a huge miss. You're going to hit that oil field with those ICBMs. It's going to be terrible. I know what I'm doing. He launches the missile. He misses. The weather god gets up gleefully, "I told you so," and spreads a huge piece of black crepe paper on the aircraft level. "You've got pollution almost all over the world, Rodney." Rodney was so upset. He was shocked himself. Eventually, he was put out of the game for some other infraction. He got into a little tussle with somebody, had to be put out for a while. But I thought, Rodney's got to come back in to be a part of the solution. We cannot put him out completely. So I went home that night and I thought, you know, I'll create a way that he can come back in, possibly if we all agree. We have a tribunal. We're going to have a censure tribunal. Rodney is censured. And Rodney can present and plead his case to the entire body. And if he can plead well enough, they can vote him back in or not. So the next day, Rodney comes in, he accepts the offer, and he pleads his case. "I won't do this again. I understand what I did wrong. I'm sorry, and I should listen to the other ministers and take it back." Anyway, they narrowly voted him back in. But Rodney's experience, which pushed us into deep despair, turned out to be the best thing that collectively pushed us together to a new solution. This kind of thing was what routinely occurs in the World Peace Game. And then finally, I would just say that the thing that I would like for you to act upon is what I see the students come up with every time. Again and again, they find a way, without me teaching any particular method or my ideals, which are totally sidelined in this entire experience. I cannot change policy once the game starts. They choose to use the game. The game is really a pretext. They choose to use the game to figure out ways to decrease suffering for everybody in the group. They don't ask, "Are you worthy? Did they pull their weight? Are they slackers?" They make it so everyone wins. And they use this to decrease suffering. And in the process, they increase compassion for each other without me teaching them a thing. They spontaneously do it. I don't even understand why. But they continue to do it year after year. And it's the most heartwarming, inspiring thing you can imagine to see. 9 and 10-year-olds deciding to take care of everyone. And so they use the tools, the critical and creative thinking tools they have in this game, hopefully to go forward and to reduce suffering and increase compassion. And that would be the one simple idea I would offer that we could act upon. Thank you very much.